Welcome back in to Daybreak. Today, I have as my guest Senator Jim McClendon, State Senator from District 11 in Alabama. Welcome, Senator Jim McClendon.
Thank you, Bobby G. Appreciate you having me. What a pleasure.
I've always called you Senator Jim. I hope that's all right.
Oh, I think that will be good for a while.
For a while?
Yeah.
Let's get into the meat of the whole situation. And you know I'm going to ask you this question. You chose not to run. We've got Keith Kelly running as a Republican in District 12. You're in District 11. We'll get into this a little bit later. But Sylacauga's in District 12 now. Why did you choose not to run?
Well, Bobby, I put in 20 years in the Alabama legislature. I retired from my practice. What happened is I got just most aggravated with my state representative. I needed some help, and he just was not responsive at all. And he came out to visit me at my house, and by the time he got out the driveway, I decided there was a solution to the problem. So I ran against him, and lo and behold, I got elected. And so in 2002, I went in office. Well, this will make 20 years in the legislature, and that's plenty. That's enough. I did 3 terms in the House, 12 years, 2 terms in the Senate, 2 years, and but I thought that is just fine. Thank you very much. I've done my job. I've paid my price. Been away from my practice all that time, which I'm not going back, and it's time for some young folks to get in there and bring their ideas and stir the pot a little bit and see if they can make Alabama a better place to live.
Senator Jim, I've followed you since, I guess, your last year in the House, and you've mentioned your practice already 2 or 3 times. What do you practice?
I'm an optometrist.
Okay.
Practiced in Leeds. My dad started a practice in Leeds in 1949, and then after I did my time in the Navy, I came in and joined him. Then I built a new building in Moody and stayed in Moody. But I practiced optometry. I taught at UAB School of Optometry. And anyway, that's what I did. I checked eyes and got to meet a whole lot of people.
You mentioned the military service. You were in Vietnam, and thank you for your service. You actually went over and saw the combat situation, and I'm a veteran, but I never got across the water like you do, and thank you very much for your service, Jim.
You know, the other day they reminded us that the man on the moon landed, whatever it was, in 1969, July 20-something or another. And I was in Vietnam when that happened. So one of the most interesting conversations I tried to have was when the Navy Times came out with a picture of him stepping off onto the moon, explaining that to the Vietnamese. And I waited till I had a full moon at night. We went out and pointed up at the sky, looked at the moon, and I pointed at the picture in the newspaper. And it took a little while, but suddenly there was an outbreak of chatter. It's like they got it.
They understood what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you for your service, and you've got 20 years in government. Let's talk a little bit about, in general, in the House and in general in the Senate, and what happened while you were there, just in general. Huh?
Well, I tell you, so I went in 2002, and then in 2010 is when the Republicans finally got the majority after 120 years or something. At that point, I became chairman of House Health, and then later when I went in the Senate, I picked it up again as chairman of Senate Health. So probably that was a huge turning point in the legislature. So for my first 8 years in the legislature, I was in the minority. It was tough. Didn't care for it. It was really hard. I had bills squashed. I started. I tell you, when I first got my really big frustration with being in the minority, so when I tried to do something about texting and driving. We all know how dangerous it is, and I wanted to try to get a law through and could not get it through. I was thwarted in every step I made. The House just wouldn't let it come out. You know, they sandbagged me, they did everything in the world. But we eventually did get it through, but it was in the next session. But it was so watered down that it has not been an effective law. The problem with enforcing is on law enforcement's part, they have a hard time telling what you're doing and whether you're violating the law or not. But that was a great relief when the Republicans finally took over. I was in the majority, and I felt like I had a little bit more working room than I had before then.
Okay, you're talking about texting. That was in the House. When you got in the Senate, what did you start working on in the Senate, and what was you try to accomplish in the Senate?
Well, one of the things that happened when I was in the House, this redistricting for 2010 was coming up. Well, I didn't understand redistricting. I didn't know what it was about. So I loaded up and went up to Washington for a week's meeting. I just voluntarily did this, that talked about redistricting. There was a bunch of legislators from all over the country, and we got maps out and talked about legal cases. We drew maps. In fact, I was assigned a Democratic district in Tampa, Florida that I was supposed to defend. So I found out, I got an introduction to redistricting. And then we came around to 2010 when we had to do redistricting, and I seemed to be the one that had the most knowledge, which was not much. And so I was made chairman of redistricting in the House, and which was a most fascinating process. It's like a giant puzzle throughout the state, tracking the shifts in population. People moved, people left districts, particularly rural districts. They vacate, they move toward urban areas, and you got to redo the lines because of the concept of one person, one vote. We try to keep an equal number of votes. So that was a great experience for me. In fact, I ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court. We were sued by the other side, which was standard issue. That was no surprise. That's kind of the way it works. These things get settled in court ultimately. So I was sued, named in the suit, ended up going to the U.S. Supreme Court and sat in on the case while the hearing was done. This is something I'll never forget. And watch the judges, question the lawyers. It was pretty nifty opportunity for me. Got my picture made on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court with our attorney and with Senator Dial, who was the Senate chair redistricting. Well, then after that, all that settled, all those court cases worked out. Well, we just completed redistricting again in 2020, following the 2020 census. So I kind of automatically became Senate chair of redistricting and went through the process again. I interviewed every senator, talked about what their needs were, what was good, how much changes they had. If a senator had an increase in population, well, we had to shrink his district. And in Senate areas where there was a decrease in population, we had to make that geographically bigger in order to capture the number of people to keep them even. Right now, we have a court case that'll be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court October 4th that deals with congressional districts. And so that's been one of the most interesting things I've gotten involved in as a legislator in Alabama.
Sylacauga has gone from Senate District 11 to Senate District 12, which was, I guess, Delbert Marsh's district before. Explain why. Did Sylacauga lose population? Who lost population? Who gained populations in the two districts? That causes, because Oak Grove is in District 11, and now And you know, a mile from where we're sitting is your district 11, but where we're sitting is District 12. Sort of explain. It's been a lot of questions when they went to the polls last time. They said, "I'm not in District 12." I heard that down at J. Craig Smith. It sort of explained who gained, who lost, because you were there when the figures came out between Senator McClendon and Senator Marsh and whoever's over in the east side of the Talladega County, because we have 3 districts in Talladega County, I understand.
Well, here's how it really works. In order, a redistricting bill, a redistricting map, it's like any other piece of legislation. You got to have the votes. So you have to make folks as happy as you can. Maybe you can't give them everything they want, but if they can get most of what they want and feel like they're going to be reelected, that's the big deal. That's what they're looking like.
Yeah.
Is can I be reelected? So you actually talk to the surrounding Senate district, the occupants of those districts, and say, here's what we've got to do. We've got to make some changes here. And basically, in order to get their vote, the senators themselves have a great deal of input into that map. So you're wanted, you know, you just got wanted by somebody else more. Now, in the case of Senate 11, where Lance Bell is the Republican nominee for that and probably will be the senator from Senate 11, which is where I'm from, Lance didn't get any input because he wasn't a senator. We had no consideration for folks that might be running, might be elected. They didn't get anything to say, but the existing senators did. Senator Marsh is really a remarkable man. He's been a great senator and statesman, and he basically said, I'm leaving, y'all draw it, make yourselves happy. And so the senators that are serving in this area, they kind of work that out among themselves. And of course, then I've got to go in there and make sure the populations match up. Did that make sense, Bobby?
Yeah. Well, I sort of understood it, but you know, when you go down there and a lot of people I know a lot of people who were planning on voting for Lance Bell. And I heard the name down there. I don't see my senator I want to vote for his name, but I guess that's the fault of the ones running in this district didn't get it out to the people. But what's your biggest accomplishment first in the while you've been a legislator?
Well,
I know you got a lot
I
of them,
have
but
focused.
What are you most proud of?
Yeah, because of my background in healthcare, and being health chairman in the House, health chairman in the Senate, that has truly been where most of my thought process goes. What can we do to provide better healthcare outcomes for the state of Alabama? Now, here's the facts. We have the worst health care outcomes in the nation across the board here in Alabama. What is the problem here? Why is that? We live very close to one of the major healthcare centers in the world. But out in rural Alabama, it's terrible. Most of my efforts to make changes to this humongous industry have been met with frustration. Let me give you an example. I know everybody remembers being mandated to wear a mask. And those orders came out, signed by the public health officer and co-signed by the governor. We had churches shut down. We had businesses shut down. And it seems like we targeted little businesses and left the big guys open. It was a terrible setup. Those were ordered by the state health officer. The state health officer does not answer to the governor, does not answer to the legislature in any way. There was nothing the legislature could do about it except fuss about it. In fact, since the governor does not have that authority, he is in total control of these things. Those laws were passed between 1858 and 1890, and they're still on the books today. The state health officer is in fact chosen by a private club, the Medical Association, State of Alabama. It's a dues-paying club. They pick the state health officer, and the state health officer is granted all this authority. So in fact, a private organization, dues-paying organization, doesn't represent all physicians by any means, was totally in charge of healthcare in Alabama. I tried, this is one of the most frustrating things I've done in the legislature. I introduced bills to make changes to that, to make our State Board of Health and our state health officer answerable to the legislature and to the governor. I wanted that person, him or her, appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate, just like we do everything else. So what I'm actually not discussing is one of my greatest accomplishments, except I exposed all this. I spent many times on the floor of the Senate. I'd take 20 minutes, and I did this maybe 10 times during this last session. And I would talk about the plight of health in Alabama. I hope it stuck. I could not get the votes to change it. Elections were coming up. People wanted money from the big folks, the big donors. They didn't want to change it. However, there's a lot of people in Montgomery became aware of this plight, and hopefully somebody will take up the ball and run with it after I'm gone.
What's your biggest disappointment?
That's probably it. I'll tell you another.
Your biggest accomplishment, disappointments,
yes,
probably the other.
Yeah, they're the same thing. Now, I'll tell you another very frustrating thing I got involved in. Bob, I had people all the time come up to me and say, why don't we have a lottery in Alabama? Why are we having to drive to Georgia to buy tickets? People in North Alabama drive to Tennessee. People in South Alabama drive to Florida. Now we have a lottery in Mississippi where state dollars, cash money, is going to all the states around us. And we're not benefited. We're educating the kids in all these other states with our money. So I think it was 4 times that I introduced, over 4 different years, legislative sessions, spread out over probably 6 or 8 years. I introduced legislation to get a lottery in Alabama. Now, what I did not have, I have never had one constituent, one person come up to me and say, I wish we had another casino. Nobody says that. Nobody wants a casino. Or if they do, they're not telling me about it. So I introduced pure lottery bills multiple times. And I got, in fact, this last time now, Senator Marsh had a bill. It got killed. I picked it up and ran with it and reintroduced the thing. And I got it past the Senate, which was pretty major. And I had another one I carried for Governor Bentley and got that bill moving. But here's what I was told by a representative of the Port Creek Indians. You are not going to get your lottery until we get our casino. And you know what? That was not a forked tongue talking to me. That was a fact of life. There are so many people making so much tax-free money in Alabama right now. Well, you look at the Indians, of course. You know there's green track. There's gambling in. See, we don't have gambling in Alabama, right? Our Constitution says no gambling. Lowndes County's got it. It goes, we got gambling going on. Jefferson County's got slot machines. And apparently with the okay of the law enforcement there. So gambling is going on. It is not taxed. It is questionably quasi-legal. And the casino operators, led by the Port Creek Indians, have enough influence in the legislature to kill any legislation that does not directly benefit them.
When you mentioned influence, is that the dollar sign?
Yes, I made a list. I just looked at the senators' political contributions, and I made a list of the amount of money, campaign dollars that senators. This was the 2022, 28 for the 2018 election. The campaign dollars that the Porch Creek Indians gave to senators. They did the same thing for the House members, no doubt about it. So they've got, well, we don't know how much money they got. They don't report. We don't know what goes on down there, except we know they got a ton of money.
Talking with Jim McClendon, the current senator from District 11, and represents Sylacauga at the present time. And Senator McClendon, you're on the Senate Education Policy Committee.
Yes.
What does that do, and where's the state of education in Alabama at the present time? How would you look at it?
See, what a great question that is. What is the state of education? I just saw where one of the elementary schools in Trussville was second highest in reading in the state of Alabama. So if you want to know the state of education, you got to ask, what is the state of education in this area of the state? We have areas of the state where there is excellent public education has been offered, made public. The children do well. They stay out of jail. There's a high rate of incarceration among folks that do not complete high school, so we end up paying for an education they don't get. Then we end up feeding them and housing them because their crime areas are high. So it's spotty. It depends on where you are in the state. Now let me tell you about a bill. This is another, see, I came out of this frustrated. This bill was introduced in the last legislative session, and basically it was called parental choice. That means the parents decide where the child is going to school. And a part of the bill was that tax dollars that the state collected from everybody, not just parents, but from everybody in Alabama, would follow the child. If you wanted to send your child to a private school, then the state tax dollars that would normally go to a public school would go to that private school, along with local dollars as well. Bob, we could not get enough votes in the conservative, quote, Republican senators to even introduce the bill.
Well, Jim, that's hard to believe, but you know, you and I have pretty much the same outlook on a lot of things, and that's one of the things we totally agree on. I've been talking this morning with Senator Jim McClendon, the senator from District 11, and Senator Jim, thank you for all your years of service to the legislature. Thank you for your service in Vietnam to the country. And what do you do? Let's close out this interview. What you do for entertainment, and we've got some pictures we're going to put up here. If you look on the screen right there, what do you? Is that my senator right there?
Yeah, okay. That sure is. That's in Canada. That's one thing I do. I got some friends in Pell City. We go up to Canada every year, drive 1,600 miles. That is a northern pike. That's a dandy, isn't it?
Okay. We know you're a fisherman. How about this right here?
Oh, that's my Mercedes, my 1929 Mercedes Gazelle kit car, which I'm trying to get running again. It's driving me crazy, trying to put electronic fuel injection on it, and it's a waste of time. I'm hunting for a carburetor.
Okay, now this is, you went from the big yellow to the big green.
Well, I got thrown out. I did. I went into the orange tractor store, and this was at the very peak of the COVID, and people were laying in the halls at the hospital. And I asked the guy at the orange tractor store, I said, would you either stand back or put on this mask? I brought him one. And he looked at me and he said, there's the door. So I went to the green tractor store.
Went to the green tractor.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, how about this eagle you got here?
Hey, isn't that a beauty? That is a 1957 Eagle that's been fully restored, and the original 8 horsepower lawnmower motor came out of it, and that twin cylinder Vanguard went in it, and that thing runs like a scalded dog. I got no idea.
Now this is right here is your.
Oh yeah, that's Buttercup and Cinnamon. Those are Norwegian Fjords. We've got 4 horses. Those are our newest additions, and they're just the cutest horses you've ever seen. They're not ponies, they're horses, and they are strong and stout, and they will just destroy fences.
Okay. Senator Jim, it's been a pleasure talking with you this morning, and I've really enjoyed your time in the legislature. I hope you've enjoyed it, and from looks at your horses, you scooter, and you fish and all this, you enjoy life. I know you're 79 years old. You don't mind me saying that?
No, don't mind at
because
all.
I guess I can say it because I'm older than you are, and I enjoy life, and it's evident that you've enjoyed life. You've done an excellent job, and I had a lot more questions, but 25 minutes goes by real quick, and thank you for all your service, especially your service to the government and the Army in Vietnam and everything.
Bobby G, I want to thank you. You've been a great supporter. You've been my inside guy in this part of the county. You've been a lot of help. I enjoy riding in the veterans parades with you. And Sylacauga is really one of the sweetest towns I had in my district, no doubt about it.
Bobby G and Senator Jim will be out again on November 10th in the Veterans Day Parade. Until then, I'll be back tomorrow morning with more Daybreak.